The most important thing you need to know before reading about all of the terrible things Rob Liefeld has drawn is that he has never seen or talked to a woman in his life and has no idea what they look like or how their bodies operate. If you asked Rob Liefeld to draw a diagram of the uterus, he'd put on a pair of gauntlets and punch the shit out of your chalkboard. This is how the man operates. And though I know it sounds like a lot, you have to believe me. I don't want you looking at the stuff he's drawing and think he's a conscious adult male with a creative job, who can and has influenced the minds of young artists. The man is a pair of blue jeans with a face. He has on a backwards cap, and when he turns it around, it's still backwards. Got it? Okay. The number 40 spot is a catch-all for any time Rob Liefeld has ever drawn a woman. We get more specific from here, but if we didn't lump these together, the entire list would be broken spines and colossal hooters. I genuinely feel these are mistakes. This is what a woman looks like to Rob Liefeld. I can't even kid about this. It's fucking ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. She's wearing a string of pouches where her stomach should but could not possibly be, and both her thighs and forearms are larger than her abdomen. She has a big ol' ass and torpedo tits, and I genuinely think that when Rob finished drawing her, he sat back, frowned, looked over at his friend and said, "Yikes, sorry guy," and then he started drawing teenagers for DC Comics. No kidding. What we're exploring isn't an artist we don't like. We argue about that. Bill will like one guy and I'll like another, but generally we don't wish ill on the guys, nor do we hope for their gainful unemployment. We're exploring something so abstruse and offensive that our Mortal Kombat-ridden childhood comes back to uppercut off our level heads 3 times and rip out our spine. In that sentence, spine is meant to represent, holy shit, what is wrong with fucking Rob Liefeld? Who indeed? This is a good introduction to how Rob Liefeld, and indeed just about any comics artist in the early 90s, approached their medium. Make it as dynamic and gritty as possible. In this case, dynamic involves a whole shitload of lines on the face. Some foreboding shadows obscuring the general middle of the face area, and a background that I guess implies he is sitting in front of an enormous Bengal tiger.
Bloody great big Bengal tiger.
Also of note, the fingers of Strife's left hand here all taper down in size from index to pinky. You know, as fingers do. There is also some crazy shit going on behind the binder in the general gauntlet forearm area. When I attempt to draw, I often fuck up a little and I'm like, oh shit, that's not how those parts of the body connect. And then I draw like 2 or 3 lines to try to cover it up, but it just looks shitty. I can excuse it because 1, I am usually just drawing in ballpoint on my binder or something, and 2, I am not a professional artist. Rob Liefeld, by contrast, draws a gauntlet going into the forearm all fucked up in pencil. At that point he then goes, fuck it! And then inks over it and sends it to the colorist. Then he gets paid for doing that. You know what Rob Liefeld hates drawing? Feet. On this cover for X-Force number 3, Rob is depicting a battle taking place between the titular team and internet darling the Juggernaut, who among us walks, apparently. They all appear to be battling atop some sort of boulder, which serves the purpose of covering up the feet of Juggernaut, Warpath, and Cable. Oh shit, gotta get Domino on there too. I can't have an X-Force cover without tits. Shit, the ground I drew didn't reach over to where I'm putting her. Oh fuck it, she'll be crouching. You can crouch in the air, right? Okay, so counting Cannonball, that's 5 characters' feet taken care of. That other Juggernaut foot he can get away with, because perspective. Kinda. Ah shit, gotta put Shatterstar on the cover. Nothing sells comic books in 1991 like a dude in a billowy silk shirt and some swords. Well, he's kind of, I don't know, either jumping in for some kind of Jodie Fleisch-seated dropkick or getting punched by Juggernaut. Check out his cape just coming straight out of the back of his head. Liefeld picks that fucked up nose and everything seems to be going well. Liefeld picks that fucked up pose and everything seems to be going well, as far as Liefeld goes. Then he gets to the feet and sort of panics. Yeah, I'll just draw an elongated Pac-Man and a kidney bean. Check out Spider-Man swinging in on a jungle vine. Jesus Christ, Liefeld drew a dog's hindquarters on him. Just straight up a dog's ass and legs. Oh, I'm not gonna last long. Youngblood, Death Shot, Death Made Red, this blood's for you. Shit! Who needs to explain why they're jumping together in front of a yellow wall with a spotlight on them? It's Death Blood Made Shot! Quick question. Why does Rob Liefeld think guns have two spots at the end of the barrel for bullets to come out? Boy, can old Rob design a costume. Let's see. Half jacket, turtleneck, matching dance troupe gloves, and oh yes, gigantic area! Apparently the background artist for this panel was Harold, who was kind enough to lend his magic crayon to the scene. Hey, no feet in this one. Score! Oops, still managed to fuck up Deadpool's hand pretty bad though. Oh well, I'm sure too many people will be unable to tear their eyes from the bulging grey package to give a shit. I would be remiss if I did not mention one of Liefeld's more brilliant creations. Forearm. His power is that he has 4 arms. Do you realize the subtle pun that? Forearm? Seriously, that's the dude's entire shtick. He's a strong guy who has 4 arms. No backstory, nothing remotely interesting about him. He would just show up and grin cockily and bear hug someone, and then Colossus or Warpath or someone would cold cock him and whoop, there goes forearm. Liefeld pretty much specialized in creating characters that no one could give half a fuck about. And then took that to new levels when he helped start Image, which was like an entire company dedicated to that principle. Keep in mind that the dude created a guy with 4 arms, and as evidenced in this panel, has no goddamn clue how to draw a guy with 4 arms. What do you mean, where is that arm coming from? Lay off me, asshole! I have to draw like 20 pages this month! In this comic, X-Force leader Cable, worse than the previous leader, Network, and Domino, with the proportional strength and speed of Petey from our gang, enjoy a steam bath. As we knew from living on the planet Earth, water is varying shades of green, opaque, and gives off swirling plumes of smoke when heated. But some of those smoke plumes are coming from off-screen, so maybe there are a bunch of humongous bathtubs in the room, or maybe someone is throwing decorative curtains. I've seen my share of X-Force covers. Domino is supposed to be about 1/8 the size of Cable. Maybe the top part of the bathtub is closer to us than the bottom, and we're looking at it from some weird 6/4 upside down bird's eye view. Domino is right though. She's getting too old for these kinds of workouts. It's making her thighs look like fucked up loaves of bread, and stretch marks you could use to measure the height of your children. I think Rob started drawing the panel, realized he sucked at drawing water, but needed to keep drawing lines somewhere so the people around him would think he was working hard on that water. Oh, but check out that sexy dialogue. That gun is totally bending in the middle, right? It's not just me. What are those sticks that are coming out of Cable and Deadpool's rucksacks? Swords? Knives? Novelty cigars? Why does Cable have HAL 9000 on his back? Why is Cable 6 times bigger than Deadpool? Jesus Christ, look how big his left arm must be! A fun Liefeld drinking game. Take a shot for every pouch he draws on a character. Oh great, now you have alcohol poisoning. In How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, drawing comics in the style of Detective Comics, aping shit the Valiant Way, and every other drawing tutorial I've been a part of, it clearly says that every line you draw on a person's face adds to their age. When you're drawing children, or sexy young women, you give them clean surfaces to suggest youth and a tightness of veins. When you draw Clint Eastwood in an eye patch, hanging out with Gen 13, you draw all over his face to let people know he's old. Depending on who you talk to, every line can equal a year added onto the life of your character. Shaft...
Who's the black private dick that's a sex machine?
No, not that
dog?
Shaft. The young leader of Rogue Operative Team Youngblood is 900 years old, and he's looking through really fine blinds. Also, his head is on fire. Image Comics is about living for the moment and taking it to the extreme! They didn't have time to learn that when you stick your head in a shadow, it blocks the light on both your face and your hair. Doing research for The Lion King? Let Disney Comics go to fucking Africa and look at how lions work. Draw the lion from a point of view no man can see, and when the ink is still wet, run a comb over it. Isn't it funny that when asked to create a universe of characters for his own comic book line, Rob Liefeld draws a guy who looks exactly like Rob Liefeld and names him Shaft? You know what? Even if this dude weren't Quadzilla, there's no way he'd be able to put his legs together with all those pouches and garters and whatever the fucks. Jesus, look how high up that one band around his leg is. What purpose could they possibly serve? His pants are so uncomfortably tight that his groin is puckering into some sort of overachieving asterisk. His belt is just under his nipples. The real capper, though, is the knee pads. What the fuck must be going through Liefeld's head when he's drawing a character? Yep, crew cut. I'll put Boba Fett's rocket on his back. Gotta go with the metal shoulder pads and enormous Run DMC gold rope chain. Okay, belt, pouches, leg things. Oh, knee pads! Yes! In conclusion, I hate Rob Liefeld, and he should be thrown in a well. Imagine me at age 12, getting to read a comic about how the big, black, naked bodybuilder uses the girls he dates. Now imagine me at 27 going over it again, laughing at how skeevy it is, and then noticing an absolute cavalcade of illogical nonsense horseshit about it. Nothing in these panels makes sense. I get what he's going for. He sits down at his drawing desk with his button-fly jeans and his backwards baseball cap, rubbing his chin and pondering what the new, hip comic book collector would like to read. So he spends at least a minute and a half drawing these pictures about a tough guy who wakes up, gets called into work, and tells the woman he's had to have sex with that he's like dust in the wind. Liefeld smiles, pats himself on the back for a job well done, and slams adieu. Now, what is wrong with this, you may ask? Well, it is 11 minutes past 1 p.m. That's the early afternoon. Chappell congratulates himself for another night, another love. He uses the colloquial phrase, "my man," to show that sex with broads is no big D. So even though it's just past noon and he's above ground, he's saying it's nighttime, and his room is completely dark with a bunch of nighttime shadows on the wall. The Youngblood communicator thing goes eep beep, a sound no one has heard or capitalized in that fashion, anywhere, ever. And he tells her to wake up at 11 minutes past 1 p.m., again above ground where the sun should be. She asks him for 5 more minutes of sleep, and he responds with, "No promises, you know the way out." If she had said, "Ooh baby, I'll be here when you get back," or "When can I see you again?" it would have set her up in awe of Chappell's manhood, which is what Rob's going for, I think. And the response would have shown Chappell as a hard womanizer, who values his life as a soldier more than any woman he might take to bed. But she asks him for 5 minutes of sleep, so when he responds like that, it makes him deaf. Or some weird taskmaster of the alarm clock. I don't think he's sleeping though, because he's got his arms behind his head like he just finished up, or he's in a hammock. And depending on how long they've been there, she's been sleeping with her face in his giant, hairless armpit. To recap, it's daytime, but everyone acts like it's night. Chapel quips without being set up for it. Even though Chapel sleeps on a mattress on the floor, his bedspread still gets a full hang. And in the second panel, Chapel is coated in a fine mist. You know what? I'm not drawing that other hand. Too tricky. What are you talking about? No one's going to notice. Look out! Bitch fight in front of the furnace! Prophet, a time-displaced hero who needs an asshole of adamantium to carry that many pouches around his thigh, drops a big leg on Combat. An alien with powers that include making me too apathetic to even finish this sentence with a joke. Well, Bill Handstock thought he was dropping a big leg on Combat. In my humble opinion, Prophet is going for a Bronco Buster. Combat is countering with the foot to the dick. Whatever is happening, it shouldn't be happening long enough for Combat to get out 2 whole sentences, have Prophet respond, and then go oof, as though the action has been completed. Yep, that's how comic books work. Maybe he's saying oof because he got his wingtip stuck in the furnace. All grimacing all the time! To be fair, you would grimace too if your neck was doing that. I honestly had no fucking goddamn idea why that face and hand are there. How do you get perfectly symmetrical tears on your pants like that? Ruined t-shirt, shredded Dockers jeans, perfect tiny little dress shoe. The shield is all fucked up, and Liefeld never learned to draw anything other than early 90s feathered blow-dried hair that doesn't touch the ears. I think he just draws the face and then draws a big floppy squiggle on top with a narrow point to it that says hair. And then the inker sighs and takes a pull of Southern Comfort and does their job as best they can. I thought I would be above making a comment about how it looks like the Invisible Woman is taking a shit, but there it is. I'm pretty terrified by this drawing, honestly. That looks like it should be in an issue of Heavy Metal with very different things happening to cause that expression. Liefeld's approach to drawing women? Fat lips and plenty of eyeliner. Look at where her upper arm is going off panel and where her fist re-enters the frame. Also, anytime he draws anyone running anywhere, they always have their arms held straight out to their sides. Like, I understand that you have to create the illusion of movement, but I think what is more important is the illusion of me not hating you. Well, at least he traced out exactly where the borders of her vagina are, in case anyone was wondering. Wait, someone put one of her legs on sideways. I think Cable should be holding a big gun on this cover. Well, yeah, he usually is. No, I mean a really big gun. Wait, how big? Well, something like this. Draws an artistic representation of excess. Liefeld, you genius, you've done it again! Check out the size of Cable's trigger hand on that gun. Now look at the size of Cable's thigh. This is not normal. I also like Shatterstar making a fist and Liefeld just sort of tossing a gun on there. Whoop! Not enough of the cover involves guns yet! I have never seen a drawing of lips make me feel as creepy as looking at this does. Be right back, I'm gonna vomit. Welcome to the 90s! Guns, swords, and long hair! Is it any wonder that it took so long for comic books to be a socially acceptable artistic medium? If Jack Kirby is the Thomas Edison of comics, Rob Liefeld is the Al Jolson. Except I think Al Jolson could draw pretty well. I really cannot get over how enormous Rob tends to draw his male characters. Really, they're so over-muscled and a stereotype of a stereotype that they just end up looking like weird, wrinkly fat asses. All the pouches and half-shirts aren't helping either. If I had a nickel for every time Liefeld had his character standing behind something so he didn't have to draw their feet, I would still not have nearly as much money as Rob Liefeld. Here's a game to play. Which one of those fingers is a thumb? give up? So did Rob Liefeld. The guy with the swords, as touched on before, is another of Rob's creations, Shatterstar. His power is that he has swords and boxing headgear, and also that he has a star around one eye. Because Paul Stanley is a total badass, you guys. Anyway, Shatterstar has all these swords all the time, and Rob Liefeld cannot grasp the basic concept of how the blade of a sword sits on the hilt. Or hey, maybe he just doesn't give a shit. Here, you see the blade kind of resting diagonally or almost perpendicular to the hilt. Probably because he used a ruler to draw the blade, and then was like, hey, I used a tool to make sure that line was straight. Now kiss my ass, physics! In addition, either Reaper is tiny and Shatterstar is crouching down in to chop his hand off, or else he is jumping for no reason in such a way as to not gain any leverage or anything, just to be awkward. Shock! Darker Image was intended to be a 4-issue miniseries from Image, used to introduce 3 grim and gritty characters. In the first issue of Youngblood, a guy uses psychic powers to explode Saddam Hussein's head, but that's for babies. Featured in the comic were the Max, Deathblow, and Blood Wolf. Wolf with a U. Blood Wolf. Okay, DC Comics has a character named Lobo, which means wolf. An intergalactic bounty hunter who was popularized as a parody of the ultraviolet anti-heroes becoming popular in comics in the late 80s. Blood Wolf, who was wolf in his name, is intended as exactly the same as Lobo. If you wanted to say he was a parody of Lobo, you could do that, with Blood Wolf serving as a parody of ultraviolence by doing ultraviolence without irony instead of with it, and get all meta. But, well, he's just Lobo again. He's just Lobo again. He shows up for no reason to infiltrate a base and kill the guy in charge of it. This is the plot of everything Rob Liefeld has been asked to write himself. The first 8 issues of Youngblood open with them jumping from an airplane into somebody's base. On the way in, he walks by Lobo. Liefeld parodies Lobo by drawing Lobo in different colors and then having him be there with Lobo. It's like when your friend decides he wants to write X-Files fanfiction, but instead of writing his own episodes of the X-Files, they're all stories about Mulder and Scully hanging out with their new friend, your friend. There's absolutely zero humor or creativity going into it. Liefeld just drew a goddamned Lobo comic, and because he goes, "Look guys, it's Lobo, I'm self-aware," it's supposed to excuse the fact that he's a lick shit with the artistic ability of 2 girls with 1 cup. In the big finale, Blood Wolf shoots the boss in the head one time, kablam, and manages enough force to sever the head completely from the body and still be accurate enough to pop out the guy's eyeball. Thank goodness Blood Wolf shot him in the neck hard enough to break the spine off a foot below impact and spill the body supply of stringy goop. And look, even the fat guy is covered in pouches. The 4-issue miniseries ran for 1 issue. Here is a simple guide to creating your own Image Comics character. Step 1. Take a pre-existing Marvel or DC Comics character that fat guys would like the Punisher. Step 2. Change his name to a couple of negatively connotative words, blood, die, death, with a second but completely unrelated negatively connotative word, shot, hard, or blow. Number 3. Draw scribbles all over him. Number 4. Do not make him engaging or interesting ever. Now for a tasteful splash image of the Human Torch. Fucking the Thing. Missionary style. Splash page, more like slash page, am I right? Note the Torch's full, supple buttocks. If this isn't a drawing of a naked guy on fire, anally violating a semi-nude grotesquerie in mid-air, I don't know comic books. The Thing's blow-up doll mouth is also kind of disturbing, as is the fact that he looks like he's pretty into it. Never would have figured Ben Grimm to be a bottom, but there you have it. At least they're face to face, so you know this isn't just some cheap fuck. There's some passion involved at least. Work those nipples, Johnny. Work 'em good. Rob Liefeld likes to draw lines all over his characters. So when he gets a chance to draw Spider-Man, a superhero with lines all over his costume, what does he do? He adds metallic reflections to his head and shoulders, the same reflections as Juggernaut's helmet, so mystic metal and cloth reflect light in the same way apparently, cross-hatches his boots, and colors his belt a different color, so he doesn't have to draw on it. And he replaces Spider-Man's normal hands with lumpy, four-pronged talons. Why does Spidey's right hand have a little penis coming out of it? How many teeth are in a mouth? Like 1 billion, right? I'll just draw 1 billion. All the same size and shape. All of the characters on this page are in the same room. Not that you'd know that, given the way Liefeld draws the majority of his backgrounds, where most artists would include, say, details of the room or an actual background. Rob uses groundbreaking techniques like Dagwood's hair, horizontal lines, curves, and cross-hatching! Seriously, if that establishing shot weren't there, you'd think these people were all kind of abstract concepts. What are they, wind tunnel? Who gives a shit? Get back to people holding swords. This is Skids, Blevin, and Magma. They used to be in the New Mutants, but now they're in the dreaded MILF. They look exactly the same. Can you tell which one is supposed to be Hispanic? And again, I use holding in the loosest sense of the word, because Rob Liefeld does not understand how a human hand grasps something. Take this cover, for example. Shatterstar's fist is at a minimum the same size as his head, and it's somehow supposed to be holding that sword, which I guess Cannonball is flying that sideways or something. God, look at how hard Shatterstar is flexing. Maybe his superpower is that you can see all of his muscle and sinew through his skin. Oh, mercy. I just realized that the guy has a semi-short haircut everywhere, but has a real long ponytail, and then also has 2 long braids coming out of, the back of his neck somewhere. Can you imagine how hard you would elbow your friend if you saw a dude with 3 ponytails? You would elbow the shit out of them. In this issue of Youngblood, the team jumps out of a helicopter to infiltrate an... Oh, son of a bitch, just quit it. The art in this splash page, every page, is notably bad for the big weird choice of having hard buttocks as its feature, but is included on this list as a catch-all for the best part about Youngblood, Rob Liefeld's writing. If you needed to find something worse than his ability to draw, it's his ability to write. And thank goodness he was paid millions of dollars to both draw and write. It's a double whammy here. Bedrock shouts not 1, not 2, but 3 catchphrases in one word bubble. One of them... What? I can't do it. What? I can't read that out. Oh, okay. One of them is Yabba Dabba Doom. Oh. Which should have an entire wing of the Smithsonian devoted to its awfulness. I did it! I got through it! But the best is Die Hard's reaction. Doesn't he realize what's at stake? Doesn't he realize what happens when you pair an exclamation point with a question mark? You get to yell questions! Yahoo! What a rush! So is she flying, jumping, falling? According to movement lines, only her right calf and left forearm are moving, and not even in the same arc. Her hips and upper body don't line up, and judging by her eyes, she's clearly drunk. And I know that Liefeld, sadly, isn't to blame for this, but what the fuck kind of introduction to someone and their power is Tempo, who can make time fly with her? So, like, she flies? I guess? And something to do with controlling time? Oh, the hell with it, we'll make it up as we go. I've never thought to question Rob Liefeld's sexuality, what with all the anatomically incorrect women and all. But I have to question whatever it is that keeps him from drawing a man's area without making it look like he's got a fucking snow shovel shoved down the front of his pants. Look at Richter's enormous area. It's almost as wide as his waist. As I write more of these, it gets harder for me to write anything but look at that! And what is going on with the gloves? Why does everyone on the team wear short sleeves and gloves? But I invite you to check out the Bart Simpson poster in the background. Not only is it topical, but it's a blatant exercise in dissecting Rob Liefeld's shortcomings. He doesn't have the patience for uniformity or technique, so Bart's hair spikes are all different sizes. He doesn't have the natural talent to draw a curve without it ending in a rippling lat, so Bart's fingers look like butter knives. He doesn't have the perspective to recognize how sizes and shapes relate to each other, so Bart has an Alfred E. Newman ear growing into his cheek. Rob, couldn't you have just traced a picture of Bart Simpson in the background? We all know you don't have any qualms about tracing. Wait, why is Boom Boom sitting on the dresser? Is that where Richter keeps his eyes? A one-act play drawn by Rob Liefeld. In a room comprised of screen doors, a man decides to close his eyes and drink nothing out of half of a metallic medicine capsule. Realizing something is amiss, he has a heart attack. This turns him orange and whites out his surroundings, and just before his Nubian secretary can enter the room, he collapses, eyes still closed, and dies, all alone and orange on the magenta void that used to be his floor. And scene. Sorry about your dad, Berto. I liked you back when Bert Blevins was drawing you. Okay, by this point we all know about Rob's little foot problem. Look back at that other picture of the blonde in the dress with her cooch showing. Notice anything? Besides her vag, you moron. Apparently, Rob never learned how to draw a woman standing flat-footed. So rather than, learn, he instead drew every female character on point. Or had them jumping, or crouching, or running, or standing with their legs behind something, or standing in water, or falling, or flying. These women look very uncomfortable. Domino especially. Just all one giant leg tapering down to a fingerfoot trying to dislocate her rib cage. I'm not an expert on anthropomorphism, and I'm the last person to consult when it comes to sexualizing an animal lady, but is the tail supposed to come out of the middle of the butt cheek like that? And while we're at it, Rob, speed lines are supposed to suggest motion, so you only have to draw them going in the direction of whatever you want the thing to look like it's moving. You don't need to draw perpendicular lines across them. Your characters aren't shitting out ladders when they jump. This page could have made the list based on Farrell's right leg disappearance somewhere in the middle of the sword handle in the first panel. But no. This was selected by Bill Handstock based on the magically changing hairstyles. When you create a character and you give him a bunch of ponytails, you have nobody but yourself to blame when you have to draw them on. In the first panel, Shatterstar's hair is long and flowing, with two ponytails coming out of the same spot on the right side of his head. In the second panel, his hair has gotten shorter, and the ponytails are nowhere to be found. In the fourth panel, when he takes off his hilarious padded helmet, the hair has shortened further into a Colonel Guile flat top with a rat tail. So I guess Shatterstar's hair reacts like a flaccid penis, and shrinks when he's faced with unwanted sexual advances. I can't explain where his pupils or eye makeup went, though. In the first panel, Feral has a big ponytail. That's floating underwater or something, because ponytails don't work like that. With white bangs. In the second panel, the ponytail is off-screen, so who knows what's going on there. But the white bangs have disappeared completely. In the third panel, she's not wearing a ponytail at all, and has the haircut she normally has, with white streaks returned, but her bangs are still orange. So he only had to draw 2 characters on this page, and fucked them up consistently, even though he had the other drawings that he just did to work from. We'll call it hereditary blindness. No one in Liefeld's world ever just stands like a normal fucking human being. They've always got their chests and asses sticking out at odd angles, or standing on the balls of their feet poised to strike, or one guy inexplicably with his face in complete shadow, although it's literally the only shadow in the entire room, and it's just one completely localized area just right there! Whoever painted that wall fucked up so badly. Matt Murdock needs to stick to lawyering. Oh man, this has everything and then some. You've got the terrible feet and feet being blocked, the terrible grasp of anatomy. Check out David Bowie there with the ridiculous elongated neck all offset onto one of her shoulders, arms different lengths, like 9 feet tall, and the coup de grace, both legs forming one ridiculous slender leg. Look at that knee! That is only one leg! This is a tremendous example of Liefeld's knack of drawing people interacting with things, but not actually drawn as such. You've got Cable sitting on some kind of hover bike, and his foot isn't touching it at all, and his hand is just kind of non-committally near any supposed controls. I swear Liefeld probably drew Cable standing on the dock, crouched and ready, and then looked down and said, "Oh, whoops, got a little more page down at the bottom there. Scribble, scribble, scribble." I held this picture up to my roommate, out of context, and said, "I want to see how long it takes you to figure out what is happening in this panel." He stared at it for about 45 seconds, brow furrowed, before timidly offering, "Breakdancing contest?" The correct answer is that it doesn't really matter, because dear God, just look at how terrible all of this is. This page actually used to make me furious when I was 13, because there is no fucking way Shatterstar is pushing that sword into that guy with his palm. Also, the wrong person is finishing his line in the last panel. These 2 frames say all that needs to be said about Rob Liefeld. He is a terrible artist with no concept whatsoever of basic human anatomy, physics, or how things operate. There are a myriad of comic book artists who painstakingly research anatomy and medical photographs and watch cinematic masterpieces to try and emulate the great auteur principle of mise en scène. They have friends and models pose, and they set up the appropriate lighting and take pictures for reference. They look at metallic objects to get the sense of reflection just so. Rob Liefeld, on the other hand, thinks you can just put the flat of your hand against the bottom of a sword's handle and push it through a guy, lifting him off the ground. Look how smushed everyone looks in that panel at the bottom. That's not a stylistic choice or anything. They just wouldn't fit otherwise. That's the only reason Shatterstar is on bended knee offering everyone a Jawa kebab. "We are connected via satellite with an eyeless 14-fingered man who chose to wear a turtleneck and a trench coat with the collar popped to his report in the desert. Tess, what have the Iraqis been doing to your thumb? Jesus Christ. I'm sorry we can't hear you. Try talking directly into your hot dog on a stick." This is by no means the worst art that Rob Liefeld has ever subjected the world to, but it is the most blatant example of how little a fuck he gives about every aspect of his craft, the industry, and above all, the reader. We'll ignore the elephantine Stronsad leg that he's given Franklin Richards in the first panel, and the billowy 90s wide-neck tee and feathered do, despite this comic actually having come out this year.
Generic 2007 pop song, auto-tune so all the voices sound weird. This is a pop song, it's 2007.
Look at Franklin's hands in the first and second panels. I have made a lot of jokes about this sort of thing up to this point, but I think this is finally concrete evidence. Rob Liefeld drew this entire page of a comic book before realizing that Franklin was supposed to be holding a gun. Then instead of using Photoshop or altering his existing art, he drew in a gun behind his hand on the first and second panels, then called it a day. Look at the hands! There is no way he ever intended Franklin Richards to have a gun. Rob Liefeld is still getting commissioned to do work for both major comics publishers. He is one of the most successful, recognizable, well-known, and popular comic book artists in history, despite being difficult to work with, egotistical, contrary, and missing deadlines on a consistent basis. He has made more money than most of us will ever see in our lifetimes. He still cannot draw a foot.